Okay. Dairy Queen, chapter 10, chapter 11 and 12. Brian and I sort of settled into a schedule. He showed up after breakfast and headed to the barn with me, doing weights or sit-ups and jumps and stuff while I painted. Then he painted too while we waited for Dad and Curtis to leave for physical therapy or food shopping or whatever. And then we really go to work. The problem was that the weather was too good. Every day came up sunny blue sky, and you could see on the Weather Channel, which Dad keeps on all day because weather is so important to farming, that it was going to be blue sky sunny for days. So because there wasn't any rain to worry about, Dad announced on Wednesday morning that it was time to mow the clover, which meant me mow the clover, which meant me mowing and then kicking it the next morning to the other side dries, and rolling it the next morning so the dew burns off, and then baling and bringing all the bales in just like hay. It was basically the rest of my week. Super. Coming back from mowing though, I passed the heifer field, and that gave me an idea. And then once I got to the yard, that idea got even better because there was Curtis coming out of the house in his good shirt and everything to go to the dentist. He loves going to the dentist, which is the weirdest thing I've ever heard. We used to tease him all the time about it when we were kids. So he and Dad went off, and I raced into the barn to find Brian rolling paint on the walls, like he been stuck doing it for a million years. And I said, "Come on," and off we went to visit the heifers. The heifer field is about the prettiest spot on our whole farm. You can see for miles the hills all patterned with hay and corn and pasture until they fade away into the sky. I climbed the fence and walked around, the heifers following me because they don't have anything else to do. I found that nice flat spot near the middle, and I stood there with my hands on my hips, with the heifers all gathered around, like they were waiting for me to make a speech. Brian angled over, not all that comfortable around cows yet. Just because they're dumb doesn't make up for the fact that as heifers or yearlings, even they're still pretty big. Yup, this is a field all right, he said. This is where Win and Bill used to practice, and me when they couldn't get anywhere else. This? Brian was amazed. But what about that stuff? Meaning the cow pies. Jumping dumb teaches you footwork. You want to try it out? Trying to look all trainer-like, I whipped out the football I brought along. Brian looked like he didn't want to try it one teeny bit, but I guess he figured he didn't have much choice, seeing as it was this or painting. So he sighed and held out his hands, and I tossed it to him as best I could, and we started passing. I made it really easy for him and stood in the middle of the field so he could work on his aim, which sucked. He'd throw the nicest little pass you've ever seen, and it would go sailing 10 feet to my left and land with a little thunk and spook the heifers. Smut, of course, thought we were doing this all for her, and she was just about in heaven. Every time Brian missed, he blamed something. The heifers or the wind or Smut distracted him. Stop it, I said. That doesn't help. If it weren't for the stupid cow poop everywhere, ignore it. Just try again and just concentrate. It was hard. I'd never been a coach before. You have to tell people what they're doing wrong without getting them all demoralized. I have said 10 times that was perfect, but try it this way. It was extra hard because when I tried to point out his screw ups, he started complaining about why it wasn't his fault. So what? I finally snapped. You think there aren't distractions in the game? This isn't a game. This is a cow field in a game. I've seen your games. You think your receivers like being chewed out for your mistakes? Brian tossed down the football and headed off the field. I was happy to see him leave. What a whiner. He was almost to the gate before I remembered that we only had 3 more days. Besides, he apologized to me on Monday for something a lot worse than what I just said. I took a deep breath. Brian, I'm sorry. He looked back at me. Come on, we promised Jimmy Ott a week. It's just until Friday. You know, he said, it's not your job to bust me. It's your job to help. I couldn't help grinning. You mean Jimmy doesn't bust you? Yeah. And do you see me standing out here with him? So we got back into the groove, and he listened to me just a little bit more, a fraction of an inch more when I told him he was standing wrong. Still, we got along okay. We kept saying just till Friday whenever things got tense, like a little cheer almost, and made it bearable knowing it wouldn't be forever. Brian so sore from all his weights and throwing and stuff, and me sore too from painting and our jogging in the afternoon, and both of us biting our tongues not to make a crack that would ruin everything just till Friday. Thursday, Curtis had a baseball game, which was just as well. He was supposed to help with painting, only he worked so slow, and Brian worked so slow, that watching the two of them just about drove me insane. It wasn't like the slower they went, the sooner it would be done. Didn't want any painting fairies waiting to sneak in that night and finish it up for them. The only one who'd be finishing it up was me, which explains why it made me so crazy. Plus Curtis with this big non-talking presence sucking away anything Brian and I might have said. I got the sense that sort of drove Brian crazy. So as soon as Curtis and Dad left, we hightailed it up to the heifer field to burn off some of our craziness. Okay, I said, trying to sound matter of fact. Let's start with some sprints. Brian stared at me. It wasn't a pretty stare. I stuck a couple stakes at the other end of the field as he poked at a cow pie with the toe of his shoe just to make a point. You ready? I asked in my very best cheery voice. 40 yards, I'll run with you. I figured that would help him knowing we were both suffering. So we lined up, Brian acting like this was his execution or something. God, that guy can bellyache, and off we went. I'm a sprinter on the track team. My freshman year, we made regionals. We were so good. Of course, I didn't run track last spring because of Dad's hip, but now I remember how much I loved it and how much fun it would be to run next spring. I think I'm going to puke. Brian managed to get out as we finished. Boy, that was great, I panted, wiping my forehead. Want to do it again? He laughed. Come on, we only have 4 more. I headed back to our starting line. Brian didn't move. You serious? Yeah, why not? It'll be fun, I said. Finally, just out of shame, I guess, he shuffled over. You swinks are insane. You hear me? Insane. But I didn't hear anything else he said because I wasn't really running. Friday was my birthday. In the morning, I celebrated by rolling and baling the clover, which was just amazingly wonderful, you can tell. Actually, it was better at least than having Brian found out it was my birthday. All that talk about how I wasn't 16 yet, which is what a birthday means. It means you're finally turning an age that you want everyone to think you already are. I didn't want that talk at all. Then Brian and Curtis and I had to go out in the afternoon to bring the clover in. At least I didn't have to worry about Curtis mentioning my you-know-what to Brian. If Curtis even knew it was my birthday to begin with. Anyway, the 3 of us got the wagon loaded, every last bale in that miserable sun, and unloaded the whole darn thing and collapsed on the hayloft floor because we were so beat. Working together like that, it sure was different from the last time we hayed. An awful lot had happened in 1 week. Brian wiped his forehead. I just hope come January that these cows thank me. I'll let you know, I said. Curtis disappeared for a bit, came back with a couple big bottles of pop, which is about the best thing he ever done in his entire life. We sat there passing the bottles around and belching. I'm not too good at it. I mean, I'm good for a girl, and I can keep up with Amber, but that doesn't mean too much around here. Curtis is okay. Brian, though, geez, said Curtis, which is high praise coming from him. So that was pretty fun, and we emptied both bottles and felt pretty good. You know, Brian said, this has been the hardest week of my life. I don't know how you do it. That was nice. We sat there for a few minutes, Curtis and me savoring that. It was the very best presents I got all day. Finally, though, I stood up. It's been nice working with you. Brian held out his hand. Want to carry me to my car? Which made us grin. Take care of yourself, I said. You too, and he drove away. And that was the end of my big important week training, Brian Nelson. That night at dinner, Mom and Curtis and Dad had a little birthday party for me. Amber had to work, so she couldn't come, which was a bummer because she always fun at parties. But Dad baked this cake that looked like a real birthday cake almost, and he gave me a jar of corn syrup as a huge joke on Sweet 16. Curtis got me a Vikings jersey, which is really nice of him because those things are expensive, and I guess it shows he knew it was my birthday all along. I can wear it around the house at least, because if I wore it to school, I get beat up. All the other kids are such Packers fans. Teachers too. Mom got me. Ready for this? School supplies. Thanks, Mom. Plus the card promises she'd take me for my driver's test ASAP. That night I had a dream Dad was cooking up a big pot of hay, and we were sitting around the table eating it, and we were cows, all of us. I woke up and heard the rain starting, and you think I'd get some satisfaction from bringing all the clover in safely, but I didn't. Instead, I lay there trying to figure out why I wanted so much to turn 16 years old. But now that I actually was 16, I didn't feel one little bit different. Chapter 12, The Long Weekend. I've got to hand it to her. Mom lived up to her promise. Saturday morning, right after milking, she drove me to the Department of Transportation so I could get a driver's license. Well, not a real driver's license because this is Wisconsin, where they treat teen drivers like they're insane, homicidal morons, but at least a probationary license that lets me drive by myself so I don't have to beg Mom and Amber for rides anymore. Don't even ask what my photo looks like. So, because it was still pouring rain and I couldn't do any farm work, thank God I drove the pickup by myself to Amber's, but we watched Blue Crush for the millionth time. It's a movie about three girls who are a lot like us, except they live in Hawaii and don't have any parents and they date professional football players and surf all the time. And they're thin. And you can see that the similarities are overwhelming. Also, Amber got me a really great box of chocolates that we gobbled down in about 15 seconds. And because I was so sore from hand, she gave me a really great shoulder rub until she poked me in the ribs and I cracked up. You know, she said, I'm thinking about working checkout at the Super Saver. You should too. They've got openings. I tried to figure out how to respond. I didn't want to say it. But something about those checkout people has always made me really uncomfortable. It isn't just that they have to stand in one place all day and make small talk, both of which I hate, and call to ask the price of stuff, which I could never do, and remember all those numbers which I would stink at. Thinking about it, I realized that they were cows, too, just like me. That's what they reminded me of. Cows standing there in their milking stalls all day long, waiting to be milked. Although, of course, the checkout ladies don't get milked, but cows at least get to go outside occasionally, which the checkout ladies never do, unless they're going for a cigarette, which is which isn't the same thing. So I said, trying to be all tactful, I've got farm work. Oh, please, you're not even getting paid. Yeah. What about volleyball? Volleyball sucks, which is true. It'll suck even more if you're not there. So work with me. We'll buy that F2 150 together. Amber is saving for a pickup. Yeah, but, and don't check out ladies remind you of cows. It was a little awkward bringing it up, but I figured it would at least give us a chance to talk about it. Cows? Amber looked at me. What are you talking about? Well, you know, the way they just stand there. Amber patted me. Girl, you need to get off the farm. Want some popcorn? So she popped the bag and we hung out for a while more, but it wasn't the same. I could tell she really wanted me to take that job. Comparing her future co-workers to large, domesticated animals wasn't winning me any favors, and to tell you the truth, I was a little mad too. I really hoped we could, talk about this whole I am a cow thing. I was as pushy as I know how to be, but she sure didn't have any interest. So I drove home all by myself in the rain, thinking how nice it was not to have to ask Amber for a ride, because I sure didn't feel like asking her for anything at the moment. I did the evening milking with 32 wet, smelly cows steaming up our new, clean barn and went to bed early because there's never anything on TV and I wasn't in the mood to go out. I lay in bed thinking about working checkout at the Super Saver and how I could rather die than get a job like that. Beyond the fact that I hated the idea of it, I wouldn't be any good at it, which sort of brought up the issue of what exactly I would be good at. Certainly nothing that involved talking or working with people, which crossed a whole bunch of jokes right off the list. Carrie Jorgensen, for example, works at her folks' ice cream parlor. That would kill me. Having to deal with kids and talk to people all day long about which flavor tastes best. It's ice cream, it doesn't matter. It's good. All of it. Trust me. About the only thing I was really good at was farming, but I sure didn't want to spend my life doing that. The one other thing that had to come to mind was football. It was a shame Brian and I only had a week. Maybe after I got out of high school, if I ever got out, I could hang around and help out Red Ben's football team, like the old guys who showed up sometimes to be line coach or something. Maybe that is if I were a guy. Maybe I could join the circus. Huh? I've seen carnivals at the county fairs where kids show their animals and they judge the best watermelon and all of that. The folks who work the carnivals always look like they were having about as much fun as the checkout ladies. But maybe a circus was different. Maybe I could clean up after the elephants. I sure knew a lot about that. And in the end, that's what put me to sleep, thinking about elephant poop. The next morning, as everyone except me was getting ready for church, Mom said for the millionth time, "The front lawn needs cutting." I thought we just hated it, I said. It's an old joke in our family. No one laughs. Mom sighed. I'm just hoping it can get mowed before looks any worse. That hung there in the kitchen for a while. You could hear Dad thinking that his hip was still mending, and Curtis thinking he had baseball, and me thinking that since I do every other thing around the house, maybe someone could take the teeniest bit of responsibility and do it themselves. Then they left and I paced around the house, too wound up to sleep and too bored to do anything normal, like watch TV or something, or read. We're not big readers in this family. Farm journal maybe, or good housekeeping, or school books when we have to. But you can bet money I wasn't too interested in those. Finally, so I wouldn't go insane, I cranked up Grandpa Warren's old ride on lawnmower and went to work on the lawn. It wasn't much fun, let me tell you. The mowing was fine. I could mow that lawn in my sleep, especially since we're basically giving up on flowers and stuff. But it sure didn't make my brain any happier. There wasn't much that made my brain happier these days. The only time I really enjoyed myself, it seemed, or I was too busy to realize I wasn't enjoying myself, was with Brian. Even painting or haying was okay. He was around because he was so busy. But training was the best. Planning and doing drills with him, timing his sprints on our so-called football field. That field could be a lot better. Cleaning up the cow pies would be a start. Mowing down the humps of grass the old cow pies had turned into. Once all those were gone, I could get some lime even and mark out the lines. So after a while, without even doing the sides of the driveway and all the other stuff, I went back to the tool shed for a measuring tape and lime and stakes and the line marker, wind made out of a baby stroller and a coffee can, all there in a pile from when he and Bill left them because no one ever cleans up anything ever, and made myself a couple peanut butter sandwiches and headed up the hill. I worked right up until milking time, even though there was so much other farm stuff to do that was more important. Although now that I think about it, I was doing it because there was so much other stuff to do that was so important. But this was fun. It was my hobby. The way Mom does needlework, sometimes even though let's face it, how many little scratchy pillows does one family really need? Anyway, it was great. I scooped up all the cow pies and dumped them in a pile. I mowed the whole football field and walked all the lawns as straight as an arrow, more or less. The heifers were interested for a while, but then they just chewed their cud and watched me like I was a TV rerun they already seen. They didn't like the lawn tracker too much, but I hoped the memory of all that racket would keep them off my field. It was about the prettiest football field you ever saw. Well, half a field. I only went to the 50-yard line because even half a field is a lot of work. The grass is bright green from all the rain, and the white lawns are clear as a bell, and the contrast between the long heifer grass and the freshly mowed field made it look like much better. I kind of wished I had a hot air balloon or something to take a picture. A little voice inside me asked just what exactly I planned to with this nice new field, but I smashed that thought right down. If that thought had been a fly, I would have killed it with a fly swatter. During milking, I looked once or twice down to the end of the barn where the weights were, almost like I expected to see Brian there, which is crazy, I know. Like, how Smudge sits next to the kitchen cabinet, waiting to be fed when we already fed her. Crazy, but you can't help hoping. Then, when I couldn't put it off any longer, I went into the kitchen prepared for the worst. Frankly, I was surprised Dad hadn't already bawled me out for not finishing the front lawn. Him not showing up meant he was extra mad, sitting at the kitchen table just steaming. When I came in, though, he and Mom barely looked up. "You've been busy there," was all Mom said. "How about this one?" Dad asked her, holding up the Betty Crocker cookbook. "I stayed away from marshmallows," she answered. "What are you doing?" I had to ask. Mom sighed. "At church, your father got in a fight with Connie Ingalls." "A discussion," Dad interrupted. "They were dry." "You hurt her feelings, you know," Mom said. "I didn't say they were dry, I just said. Anyway, Dad said I could make better brownies and he proved it. She and Dad had clearly been through this a couple of times, but you never make brownies." "I'll make them," Dad said like it's obvious. "You'll make brownies for Mom?" I was confused. "Your mom's too busy. But if you're making them, then they're your brownies." "Men don't make brownies," he sniffed. "How do you feel about chocolate chips?" I looked at him sitting elbow deep in cookbooks, recipe cards everywhere, a jar of corn syrup, my birthday corn syrup right in front of him. Whatever I said, and went upstairs to take a shower. Curtis was at a sleepover, so I couldn't even joke with him about Dad. I really couldn't talk to Amber about it. She and Dad didn't get along too good in the best of circumstances. She make some crack about how you don't need booze to make brownies, which is true, but still. It's one thing to call your own father a moron, but it's different when someone else does it. And with Amber not having a dad and all, it was even harder. Because I couldn't point out her own father's mistakes, except for that one, about him leaving before she was born. That I wouldn't do. You know who I really wanted to talk to about the brownie thing? Brian, because he finds something to joke about, some way that was funny but not mean, so even Dad would laugh. And thinking about that made me really miss Brian, because, well, maybe you haven't figured this out yet, but I don't have a whole lot of people in my life to talk to, and Brian was someone I could. Even when we didn't talk, which was most of the time, I felt okay with him. And then I started thinking about his training and how the worst part was over, and how if he kept it up, it would only get better and he wouldn't be so sore. Plus, it would really impress Jimmy Art that he decided to keep going. And then right away, before I changed my mind, I dried off and went into Mom and Dad's room where the phone is and closed the door so no one could hear me because that would be the worst. And I looked up Nielsen in the phone book and they were listed, thank God, because I didn't have a solution if they weren't and called them. The phone rang 4 times, one more ring, I decided, and I hang up. "Hello?" A woman answered. "Yeah, hi," I swallowed. "Is Brian there?" "Brian," she called, "there's a girl on the phone for you." I blushed deep red. "Okay, I know I'm a girl and that I was calling him, but I wasn't that kind of girl." "He must get 100 calls a day from girls. They sure call his cell phone enough. I should have called his cell phone." That I wouldn't be interrupted with his mom, but I didn't even have that number. And if I did call it, that would make me seem even more like a girl on the phone. "Hello?" Brian said. "Hey, it's DJ. Hey, how are you?" At least he didn't sound angry. "Okay." I tried to think of something to say, but all I could think of were all those girls who called him and how they probably were much, much better at this. The minutes ticked by. You wanted to put Curtis on, let him talk for a while, my ass. I cracked up because I was so nervous, but also because it was funny. And then all at once, so I wouldn't stop myself. Last week was real hard, but it's going to get easier. So maybe if you wanted to, we keep going with the whole training thing. Huh, said Brian as I tried to breathe. You know you're right. It would get a lot easier with the base I've got. It's a real good idea. I nodded, which was stupid seeing as he couldn't see me. But you know, I just got this lifeguarding job and it's every day. Lifeguarding, I asked. I couldn't believe it. Lifeguarding? Well, you know that's good. They'll really help up with football. Is DJ Swink being sarcastic? No, well, yeah, I was because you have to watch out. You keep making comments like that, and sooner or later, you'll have a sense of humor, and then you'll really be in trouble. I smiled. I couldn't help myself. Yeah, well, at least you'll be tanned. And don't you start too. Mom's already all over me about sunblock. She wants me dressed in a snowsuit or something. I laughed. Well, just thought I'd tried. The training thing and all. Thanks for calling. Working with you was fun, except for the parts that sucked. I thought it all sucked back then. Nah, just parts. Thanks for calling. After I hung up, I sat on the bed still in my towel, thinking how nice that conversation had been. That's the thing about having someone to talk to. It's fun. I hate to compare Brian to Amber, but she and I didn't have conversations like that. At least not lately. Amber was pretty good at making fun of other people, but Brian, well, he did make fun of other people, like me, not being able to talk or his mom and sunblock, but it wasn't mean, it was just fun. If I had to make a list of the very best qualities someone could have, that would be right at the top. Being nice fun instead of mean fun. So I went to bed, and that nice feeling I had from talking to Brian, from talking basically slowly wore off as I realized I wouldn't have anyone to talk to or train. I couldn't go to Jimmy Art and ask if he had any other football players in need of a workout. It had taken everything I had just to call Brian, and there was certainly no one in Red Bend to go to and say I was a dumb girl farmer who flunked English and now wanted to be a sports trainer. Oh, they line up for that. The only person that could possibly come up with was Curtis, which wouldn't work for reasons you'll understand if you've ever had a brother. Basically, where it came down to was that my life sucked. It sucked even more than it had before Brian showed up because now I knew it.